I think that it's important to show that yarmulkes are really defines, I'm proud to wear a yarmulke, and I'm proud to be a Jew, and I'm proud the fact that when I go in front of a judge, the judge knows, this guy is an Orthodox Jew. And it's a mila, it's a benefit. They know that we're good people, we're righteous, we take things seriously, we're not going to curse, we're going to act in a way that's kavod Torah and befitting someone who's involved in Torah and someone who believes Torah is the main thing. And we're here for parnasa to help encourage it, and to break up fights, not to encourage the fight.
Baruchim Abayim, and welcome to Chazaq's Torah Talk, Chazaq's program with special guests. We have with us from over here in Queens, our dear friend Rabbi Ephraim Glatt. Baruch haba, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to be speaking about being a Jew in the workplace. And before we get to that exciting topic, we get a little bit of background about the rabbi.
Sure. First of all, start Pesach B'chvod Aksanya. Shkach for everything that Chazaq does, and you do in particular for the community, for Klal Yisrael.
Thank you, Rabbi Glatt. Appreciate it.
Continue to be Chazaq Baruch.
Amen.
A little bit of my background. So Baruch Hashem, I'm fortunate. I wear two hats. I am the associate rabbi for the past, decade or so at Young Israel of Kew Garden Hills in this wonderful neighborhood. I've been fortunate to work with Rabbi Fabian Schoenfeld Zatzal and Yibadol Chaim Tovim, Rabbi Yoel Schoenfeld Shlita, and now with Rabbi Daniel Rosenfeld Shlita, all excellent rabbanim who I've been fortunate to learn from and work with in a great capacity. My volunteer role at the shul is essentially to run the Ashkama Minyan, plus I give shiurim throughout the shul and help really focus on raising the Torah level and Torah knowledge and halachic knowledge to a higher level, and to really increase the excitement about Torah, which is something and halacha, which is something I'm very passionate about.
Right.
That's one hat that I wear. Second hat I wear, which is more of a job, is I'm, for the past, decade and a half, I've been an attorney. I started my career as a commercial litigator at a large Manhattan law firm for over a decade. Our firm was known as a firm that represented Donald Trump. We had some former senators, former AGs. It was really a litigation powerhouse, and I was fortunate to have gained a lot of litigation skills, both aggressive litigating and also how to mediate, and works to complement hopefully my rabbinic training as well, to try to avoid multi-million-dollar fights instead of going straight out after those fights. And now in the past 2-3 years, I've transitioned. I'm a partner at a local, it's a smaller mid-sized firm. I'm local, and it is called McRail and Bensinger. We have a real estate group, we have a bankruptcy group, we have a transactional group generally, and I am part of the commercial litigation group. Again, litigation, for those that don't know, is, when people fight and they go to court. I've, Baruch Hashem, a lot of experience in batei dinin and in secular courts, and the goal is to make shalom, but, and if you can't make shalom, then you need a good litigator to, take it to the next level.
Well, I knew the rabbi for so many years. I didn't know that hat that the rabbi wore. That's very interesting. Okay, good to know. So the topic of being a Jew in the workplace, do you have a story that comes to mind of being a Jew in the workplace that sticks out maybe?
So Baruch Hashem, I don't have a bad experience for myself. I've appeared in federal courts and in state courts and in batei din, and I've never felt any discrimination for wearing a yarmulke. But there is actually a lot of precedent, unfortunately, especially in these times of anti-Semitism. It's not hard to believe. It would have been harder to believe maybe before October 7th. Now it's not, unfortunately, not hard to believe. But there has been a lot of discrimination against lawyers, experts in courtrooms wearing yarmulkes actually in court. There is a case from about 25 years ago, give or take, maybe even more, in which a judge in Texas was running her courtroom, and there was an expert witness. Now, an expert witness means that you have two parties fighting, and so one side wants to prove their case, so they call in an expert witness on the topic. It happens to be this expert witness happened to have been an attorney as well. And so this expert, I think his name, he's still a practicing attorney and an expert. He is a world-renowned expert in injury prevention and aspects about that in terms of torts. In other words, the reason why you have the net behind the baseball stadium so that the ball doesn't hit the fan. So what are the legal regulations that go into putting up that net and how to protect all the fans and the spectators? So this guy is a guru at that. And so he's called in to testify. I think his name is Professor Fried. It must be late 1990s or whatever it is. He's called in to testify in this Texas courtroom about his expertise. And he walks in there, and he's wearing a yarmulke. And this Texas judge, I think her name was Pat Lykos, Lykos or something like that. She is the presiding judge. She takes one look at him and says, if you want to testify in this courtroom as an expert, you got to take off your yarmulke. So he turns to the attorney who had hired him to be the expert, and he says, well, look, are we going to lose the case if I don't testify? And the attorney tells him, yeah, like, we really need you to testify. If you're disqualified because you refuse to remove your yarmulke, we're toast. And what happens? He removes his yarmulke, and then he testifies. Sure enough, he doesn't take it like that. He goes, after the case is over, he starts working with some of the, ADL and other groups, and they ended up passing a law in Texas that a judge is no longer allowed to do that. This is in the early 2000s. And now, in order for a judge can't just what's called sua sponte, can't at her own or his own volition just say, you got to remove your yarmulke. If the other party wants to say that your yarmulke is prejudicing the jury or prejudicing the judge, so then they could, ask the court to consider it. But even at that point, the court needs to first, see, well, maybe if you put your yarmulke in the back of your head, or you wear a smaller yarmulke, a different color, or make it less conspicuous, then you have to go through all the avenues before the court will tell you at that situation, because it prejudices the other side, so then you got to move your yarmulke. In other words, it's a very hard bar. But this Professor Fried, actually recently emailed him when I was looking into this topic. Like he said, really, this judge had a chip on her shoulder. She ended up running for DA in Texas. She won for a few years and then was removed because of some scandal or something. Oh, wow. So Hakadosh Baruch Hu, runs the world, but it's pretty wild that even in today's day and age, there's 20 years ago, there's blatant anti-Semitism by real judges.
Wow, it's crazy. So I know that the rabbi has a halacha column, and what does the halacha tell us about yarmulkes and kippas and head coverings? And
so it's an interesting topic. I Baruch Hashem, I'm fortunate to publish a sefer, and now I also write as well in the Queen's Jewish Link, which has given me the opportunity to thank Yaakov Stroh and his team for really, giving me this platform, which is a great way. I always believe that when you write stuff down, then you really understand stuff. Yes. If you can't write it and you can't explain it to the general populace, then it's meaningless. 100%. So I feel the same way about it. It's very important. So I'm very lucky. So I write this article. So in terms of what halacha says about this topic, we actually gave a series on anti-Semitism over Shavuos at Young Israel of Kew Gardens Hills. We Baruch Hashem had a nice attendance, and we really were able to hopefully go through the night, keep people up, talking about these halachic anti-Semitism issues. And so one of the topics we actually discussed was this yarmulke wearing. In general, wearing yarmulkes is a machlokas, a poskim, about the severity or the importance of wearing a yarmulke. Is it simply a midas chasidus, which I'm not chas v'shalom knocking, which means midas chasidus means a pious extra aspect. It's not a requirement. It's a nice idea to wear a yarmulke, a pious idea to wear a yarmulke. And that's what some of the poskim suggest, that look, it's quoted in the Taz, quotes of Marshall and others who say it's a great idea to wear a yarmulke, but you don't wear a yarmulke, okay, there's room obviously to allow that, and it's all based on what the source of a yarmulke is in general. The Gemara in Kiddushin says you're not supposed to walk 4 amas, which is 6, 8 feet, with your head uncovered, because the Shekhinah, God's presence, resides above our head. So in honor of this presence, God's presence, we try to cover up our head. So that's the one opinion. However, there is a second opinion about the importance of yarmulke, and that's the Taz. The Taz is in 1600s, is a posek, maybe 1700s, says that the reason for a yarmulke is so chukoseim lo selechu, the pasuk says, which means that you shouldn't copy the non-Jews. Non-Jews, when they walk around, they remove their yarmulke when they enter into a holy place. Or at least they used to. That's an important sentence. But in the olden days, in their churches and in their holy places, they would walk in the street with the yarmulke, and then they would remove it. So us as Jews wear a yarmulke to distinguish ourselves and say we're not like the general populace, the regular nations of the world. We as Jews, we always keep our yarmulke on. So that's the general background. Now, there is a famous posek, the Melamed Wahoel, who lived in late 1800s, early 1900s in Germany. I think Rabbi Hoffman, his name was. And he has a fascinating tshuva, a responsa, in which someone asked him this following question. I need to go to a German court to testify, and I need to possibly invoke God's name, swear or affirm, whatever they did in German courts in 1905 or whatever it is. And can I remove my yarmulke? I don't want to be prejudiced. I want people to be prejudiced rather against me. I don't want people to use bias against Orthodox Jews. And the Melamed Wahoel says, look, these Hungarian rabbis are very strict about yarmulkes. We German Jews don't believe that. We follow the opinion that it's just a midas chasidus. It's just a pious issue. If you're going to lose money for it, then you're not obligated. If you're going to lose the court case because you're wearing a yarmulke, he says, you could take it off, he says. And he brings a fascinating story. He says, when I, the Melamed Wahoel, was interviewing for my job at Reb Shamshin Rafal Hirsch's school in Germany as a Rebbe, I walked in with my head covered, and Reb Shamshin Rafal Hirsch himself told me to remove my head covering because, he said, the other teachers are going to think it's disrespectful that when you meet with a director like me of the school, Reb Shamshin Rafal Hirsch, that your head is covered. Which is a wild thing, because in those days, in Reb Shamshin Rafal Hirsch's school, grammar school, in that school, the boys only wore their yarmulkes in the morning and not in the afternoon for secular studies. So the Melamed Wahoel says, in German Jewry at that point, it was completely normal to not wear your yarmulke, and therefore he said, in this case, when you're going to court and you're going to lose money if you don't remove your yarmulke, it's fine to remove your yarmulke. Now, well, that is obviously a quite controversial position. And in fact, there's an article in a Chakira, which was published a few years ago, in which later versions of the Melamed Wahoel is actually censored. They removed this page from the tshuva, from the book, because they didn't like that idea that it's true. Because the custom today, and we'll see, as we progress in our talks, we could talk about other, poskim who perhaps disagree with that version.
Another famous saying is Yiram Malka, having fear of the queen, Yarmulke.
Yeah.
That's where you have it over us to remind us that we have someone over us, God Almighty. I also remember learning Rav Avadia. He says that today, to be part of the Machaneh Yisrael, to be the camp of the Jewish people of Yerushalayim or something along those lines, he says you have to wear a yarmulke. That's what I remember learning over there. But a comment scenario that comes up is someone wondering whether to wear a yarmulke in a job interview, and he's questionable. Yes, no. What do we advise in such scenarios?
So it's funny. So what you just said about Bavadia is actually very relevant to that topic. Ramosha in 1970, Ramosha Feinstein, and in 1970, in Igrus Moshe, I think 73, 74, was asked a question by Rabbi Erlinger, or Mr. Erlinger, I think Rabbi Erlinger, in Denver, Colorado, a place obviously we know, unfortunately, in today's times is a hotbed, unfortunately, of anti-Semitism, Rachmana litzlan, like we just saw, a few weeks ago, Rachmana litzlan. And so he was asked by someone in the 70s, Mr. Erlinger, who was going on a job interview, if he's allowed to remove his yarmulke because he was told by the recruiter that this employer won't hire anyone. Or maybe it was even the employer who told him he won't hire him in this office job if he's wearing a yarmulke. And so he asks Rav Moshe, what am I supposed to do? I'm going to lose my parnasa. I'm here in Denver. I need a parnasa. I'm given this great opportunity. Lose my yarmulke. What am I supposed to take off my yarmulke or lose the job? So Moshe says to him, you're allowed to remove your yarmulke for the job interview. What about the Taz, who was so strict about wearing a yarmulke to distinguish ourselves from the non-Jews? So he says, well, that Taz was only in those times, earlier times. Because nowadays you walk in the street, especially since post John F. Kennedy, No one's wearing hats in the streets. Jews, non-Jews. So it's not like the non-Jews go to a temple and remove their head covering. They're not wearing a head covering to begin with. So he says the whole law of the Taz wouldn't be as strict. The stringency of wearing a yarmulke, that it's distinguishing ourselves as a Jewish nation, actually wouldn't apply. That's what Moshe writes. To which the Debretziner Rebbe, the Be'er Moshe, not Moshe Feinstein, but the Be'er Moshe and the Debretziner Rebbe, Reb Stern, wrote a scathing tshuva, disagreeing very strongly with Reb Moshe. And he brings a funny story. He says a story about a man and a wife who are fighting with each other. I see this, unfortunately, in litigation all the time. People come in front of court, they're spewing and spitting and screaming and cursing at each other, unfortunately. It's horrible, the fighting that goes on. And the husband and wife come in front of the Be'er Moshe, Debretziner, and he's just sitting there looking back and forth. There's this one's hurling insult, this one's hurling insult at him back and forth. Finally, at some point, the wife turns to the Debretziner Rebbe and says, I can't believe I'm going to tell you this. Man, I'm not going to say it. No, should I say it? I'm going to tell you, Rabbi, the most amazing thing about my husband. I can't even believe I'm going to say it. I don't know if I should say it. Okay, I'll say it. She says, at night, now his family, his husband and wife, the Be'er Moshe writes, barely kept Shabbos. Like they were, he calls them the B'nai America. They were kept barely Shabbos, maybe Nida, certain marital laws and kashrut. That's it, nothing else. They were barely religious. And the woman says to the Be'er Moshe, I'll tell you about my husband. He comes home every night. He reads a secular newspaper on the couch, and as he does that, he takes off his yarmulke. I can't believe I'm telling you this, but he removes his yarmulke. The husband, according to the Be'er Moshe, writes, jumps up and says, I'm sorry, you're right. I'm so embarrassed. That must be the cause of our fighting. And they walked out happy. And the Be'er Moshe writes, he says, that is the proof that yarmulke today is a defining factor of at least a Jewish male, is the defining factor of a Jewish male person, he said. And that it's, even though it may not be halachic, it's a Jewish Orthodox symbol that shows I'm in, I'm part of the faith. I'm in. And that's exactly what you said, Rabbi Vadia. And so it's that Be'er Moshe said, of course he shouldn't remove his yarmulke for a job. And he said, he was asked a question about a guy who, same question on Moshe, different questioner. And the Be'er Moshe said, don't take the job. And sure enough, the Be'er Moshe in the footnote, like at the end, writes, I got a letter a few weeks later after the questioner asked the question that he got a better job where he could wear a yarmulke with higher pay. So that's this machlokas, the Igros Moshe and the Be'er Moshe, about how important it is, to wear a yarmulke on a job interview.
100%. If you see someone, walking on the streets and you see him without a yarmulke, like all of a sudden, you associate him as not part of the fold.
Yeah.
And that's what I always tell people: the importance of a yarmulke, the importance of having it on top of your head. So many gems, so many, such a beautiful Torah talk. We have a minhag, we have a custom in Chazaq Torah talk. So Rabbi Glatt, a final message for our broader audience to bring this all together.
Thank you again for having me. I think I would share my own personal experience, maybe as a message. When I interviewed at big law firms about 15, 16 years ago, I was fortunate to get 2 offers from 2 big law firms. One firm, one of the Orthodox partners in that first firm, told me he doesn't wear a yarmulke. None of the firm guys in the firm wear a yarmulke. He told me, look, you'll probably, if you get the job, minhag of this place is not to wear a yarmulke. Second firm I got was a firm where yarmulkes weren't so common, but there were a handful of yarmulkes in the firm people in this big law firm. Handful, 2, 3, 4, who walked around proudly with a yarmulke. And I ended up ultimately choosing, that was a defining factor, or one of the defining factors in choosing firm number 2 instead of firm number 1, was because I believe that wearing a yarmulke, whether it's a halachic, I'm usually a pretty halachic guy. So from a halachic perspective, there's definitely room to remove the yarmulke. I'm not chas v'shalom saying someone removes it. There's definitely strong basis in halacha to allow the removal of a yarmulke. For me, it felt wrong. I've always, as a rabbi, as someone who's involved in the Jewish community, someone is a father, Baruch Hashem, of children who I want hopefully to look up to their father and look up to someone who's proud to be, both the Rav and someone who's in the business world. I think that it's important to show that yarmulkes are really defines, I'm proud to wear a yarmulke, and I'm proud to be a Jew. And I'm proud the fact that when I go in front of a judge, the judge knows, this guy, he's an Orthodox Jew. And it's a mila, it's a benefit. They know that we're good people, we're righteous, we take things seriously, we're not going to curse, we're going to act in a way that's covered a Torah and befitting someone who's involved in Torah and someone who believes Torah is the main thing. And we're here for Parnasa to help encourage it and, to break up fights, not to encourage the fighting. And that's a whole attitude to litigation. Are we going to look and try to, as a lawyer, are we going to try to bill the client as much as possible to try to eke as much money? Or no, our goal as an attorney is to really make shalom and to really try to make sure that people you want people to enforce their rights for sure, but you can enforce your rights in different ways. You can enforce your rights as like the outside world, or you can enforce your rights as a Torah yarmulke wearing Jew that really believes in a higher calling. The Shekhinah, the presence of God, is on top of us.
Very, very true and very, very powerful.
Rabbi
Ephraim Glatt. I have to add about the famous story of an individual that was driving on the highway and he saw a guy with a yarmulke on the side of the road with a flat tire. And he goes and he starts helping him right away. Yeah. And then when he starts talking about shul, what rabbi, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, shul rabbi. What is shul rabbi? He's like, are you Jewish? No, I'm not Jewish. What are you wearing? He's like, my mother said whenever I'm stuck on the highway, just put this on and someone will stop and help you.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. It's really such a lesson.
Yeah. So Baruch Hashem. So very, very, very thankful to you, Rabbi, for your time, for coming and inspiring us. Being a Jew in the workplace, the importance of a yarmulke, of a kippah. And we want to thank our various different platforms for hosting Chazaq Torah Talk. Special thank to all the various different staff members and volunteers and board members and supporters of Chazaq and Natan B behind the camera. Thank you so much. And daily giving, $1 a day goes a very, very far away. We encourage everyone to get involved. Amazing, amazing organization. And Baruch Hashem, Yagdu Torah V'Yadar at Chazaq. We're always telling these kids, these public school kids, and there's so many stories of them, Baruch Hashem, just by wearing a yarmulke, how it changed them and they became closer to Hashem. So we should take this message to heart. And Baruch Hashem, episode number 201 with Rabbi Ephraim Glatt. What an amazing, amazing Torah talk we had. And Bez Hashem, we'll see you Tuesday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, chazaq.org/live, chazaq.org/live. Info at chazaq.org. Send us more requests. We get so much great feedback. I love it. Everywhere I go, people are telling me, I listen to this one, I learned that one, I love that one. Blah, blah, blah. Baruch Hashem, that's what keeps us, the engine going. Baruch Hashem, to continue. And the inspiration is amazing. And we should only hear B'sorot about the only goodness.
Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Glatt. Very nice.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.